Good evening, members of the Council, officers at Rother District Council and members of the public attending in person or watching online. Welcome to this meeting of Rother District Council. So, without further ado, agenda item 1, which is minutes of the last meeting. Do I have your approval to sign the minutes of the annual council meeting held on the 18th of May as a correct record of the proceedings?
So moved.
Thank you. So agenda item 2, apologies for absence. Are there any apologies for absence, please?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies have been received from Councillor Bayliss, Councillor Cooper, Councillor McLaren, Councillor Mear and Councillor Winter.
And members attending remotely tonight are Councillor Ganley and Councillors John and Mary Barnes. And just a reminder that those members attending remotely are unable to move, second or vote on any matter in accordance with our hybrid formal meeting protocol. So to agenda item 3, which are disclosures of interest and dispensations. Are there any disclosures by members of interest and any dispensations in matters on the agenda? If so, please declare the nature of any such interest under the terms of the Code of Conduct. Councillor Drayson.
Yeah, member of Bexhill Town Council, particularly in relation to agenda item 6.
Councillor Timpey.
Member of Bexhill Town Council, item number 7.
Councillor Byrne.
Similarly, member of Bexhill Town Council.
Councillor Burton.
Similarly, Battle Town Council.
Councillor Thomas.
Chair of Rother District Housing Company.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Councillor Creaser.
I'm not sure that it really matters, but I'm a Rye Town councillor as well.
Thank you, Councillor Creaser. Councillor Cook.
Thank you very much, Chair. As everybody else is declaring, I'll declare that I'm the Vice Chairman of Battle Town Council.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. Are there any further disclosures?
Chairman, if everyone is declaring their memberships, I should declare that I'm a member of Etchingham Parish Council, and I think my wife would like to declare that as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you for being so efficient, Councillor Barnes. Councillor Bruno.
Well, referring to parish councils, I'm on fellow parish councils. So.
It's like a trip round the county.
And a member
Councillor Gordon, I'd like to declare I'm also a member of the Udimore Parish Council. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Gordon. Councillor Drayson.
No, I've already declared, thank you, Chair.
Members are reminded to reiterate interest at the time the matter is discussed. So that brings me on to my own communications. First of all, I would like to welcome Ben, who has joined us in the chamber. He's on work experience for the week, so congratulations. I hope you're enjoying it. We all started there and we ended up here. Yeah. That's all right. Thank you. Okay. In the 2 months since I was elected as chair of Rother District Council, I have undertaken a series of varied events which have offered me an insight into the inner workings of various organisations in the district. On Wednesday the 3rd of June, I was fortunate enough to be invited to a picnic hosted by RVA and HVA, thanking the volunteers and the local community for their selflessness and dedication. It was a pleasure to meet with so many local charities and hear more about their work and what they offer to Rother residents. Unfortunately, due to wet weather, it wasn't in the open grounds that I was expecting, but it had been moved indoors to the Battle Memorial Hall. However, we were still treated to various activities, some smashing cake, and I was able to take part in what I've written down as indoor curling, but I think all curling is indoors, but it wasn't on ice, it was on ball bearings, but a great game. Recommend it. I attended a summer fair at Egerton Park, Bexhill, on Sunday the 14th of June, hosted by Space for You, a small community-led organisation supporting neurodivergent children and their families through play, creativity and inclusive approaches. They've recently developed Rother's Neurodivergent Hub in Egerton Park, and I can confirm that it's a welcoming, shared space where people can connect and feel a sense of belonging. Attending their event was both enlightening and thought-provoking, and I was lucky enough to meet some very inspiring people. And I have yet to pick up my raffle prize. So. On Monday the 15th of June, I attended 2 events in Lewes, a reception for new mayors and chairs, hosted by the Lord Lieutenant, and followed by the King's Award for Voluntary Service reception. Both of those events were a great chance to network with other new civic dignitaries, as well as learning more about local charities and organisations. Most recently, I attended an end-of-year prize-giving service for students at Battle Abbey School on the 4th of July. It was clearly a great honour to observe the historic traditions of the school. I was also treated to a spectacular performance by their very own student choir. I'm sure a lot of you have heard them sing before. It was really a mesmerising and breathtaking experience. So looking ahead, I have several engagements arranged for the coming months, which will take me to more rural parts of the Rother district, as well as attending civic events in the wider Sussex area. I repeat that I am always open to receiving invitations to events, big or small, from local charities, organisations, parish and town councils, and I believe I've just received one in the corridor about 10 minutes ago. So thank you. And although I'd written a note, I neglected to welcome Philip Baker, our new monitoring officer. So welcome. Thanks for coming. That brings us on to agenda item 5, which is public question time. Mr. Hollidge, would you like to read out your question in full?
Thank you very much. I think everybody has had the question, and I would just like to give my supplementary, if that's okay with you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Hollidge.
The first question, the question is about, just quickly summarise, Cemetery Lodge, been a dilapidated building for 10 years, and the question was about when it will be repurposed. I've had the statement back from the councillor, and it really does pose more problems and questions than it gives an answer. The supplementary question is about, is the Housing Trust the right mechanism for delivering the housing that Bexhill community rightly deserves? And I say that because there's a building there, Cemetery Lodge, that's a good heritage building in a site that should be treated with respect, the cemetery, and people go there for a time of reflection, and that building is less dilapidated, it's boarded up, and it's falling to bits. And it could provide the housing. It lists all the problems there, which I have great sympathy with the non-delivery. However, I would like to ask whether it is the right mechanism, because SIL money has been lost. The New Homes bonus money has been lost. the capital sum that Rother could have received had they sold that site to a commercial developer. Just up the road, Bellway Homes have delivered 89 homes outside of the development zone of the site allocation. That was refused at planning. However, on appeal, that Bellway Homes, quite rightly, because Rother hasn't got a 5-year housing land supply, it was granted planning permission and people are now moving into that site and their lovely homes. Cemetery Lodge.
Thank you, Mr. Hollidge. This was really meant to be a supplementary question, which seems more of a statement, and I was rather hoping that Councillor McCourt would have had the opportunity to answer the first question first, and then to offer you the opportunity of raising a supplementary.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, if you want me to read out the answer, I will, for the benefit of the public, if that's... Yeah? Okay, I'll do that. And then I'll answer your question, Ian, your supplementary. The answer, the Cemetery Lodge site is allocated for development in the current local plan and appears as a site suitable for allocation in the Regulation 18 draft of the new local plan. As such, the housing that the site is proposed to deliver is already included in the calculation of a number of years of housing supply that Rother has. There are indeed around 1,500 households currently on the housing register, and an increasing proportion of those are homeless households living in temporary accommodation. The Council is actively looking to increase the supply of the temporary accommodation that it owns, together with more social and affordable housing being delivered in Rother. The housing development strategy that has been adopted in July 2025 sets out our aims and objectives for this. The site has been in active development for Bexhill Community Land Trust for some years. Bexhill Community Land Trust have previously been in a position to take forward a development scheme in 2023, but unfortunately the contractor went into administration, and with increased cost of materials, finance and labour, it has not been possible for Bexhill Community Land Trust to bring forward a development scheme using the previously approved plans. The Council's Housing Enabling Team continue to be closely involved in supporting progression of the site. Bexhill Community Land Trust are now in discussion with Rother Planning about a revised development scheme that seeks to increase the number of units that is to be delivered from the 6 that were originally consented. Due to the ongoing increases in finance costs, materials, energy and labour, it is likely that a scheme of more units will need to be proposed in order to viably proceed with the development. Whilst the site remains vacant, the estates team have secured the property and continue to undertake regular inspections. I mean, in terms of the second question, whether the Land Trust is an adequate vehicle for delivery, I mean, I guess it's true to say that Rother District Council supports a variety of deliveries, such as the housing company, which is having success with Blackfriars as we speak. And we also partner with Southern Homes, Places for People and other organisations who will build out homes. I mean, it's truly quite dispiriting what's happened with the Land Trust over a number of years through no fault of their own. I mean, it's mentioned in the answer to the first question, the problems that they've encountered. And I think there's cross-party consensus across the chamber here regarding the need for more social homes. And in fact, Community Land Trust, one of the founder members was Conservative Councillor Joy Hughes, who sat on the board and was one of the driving forces behind that 8 years ago. Now, nobody expected it would take 8 years to get a second planning application in, but here we are. And I'm really hopeful that this will happen again. From speaking to members of the Land Trust, they have been in discussion with Homes England for increased funding. And it's very unfortunate that Westridge, the original contractor, went bust. So while we support community-led housing like this, I think it's important that we get this over the line. Given the amount of time and money and resources that are already to be invested in it, I think it would be a great shame to walk away now. And I think we're almost there. We're at the cusp of doing something really good. And the Land Trust themselves, the local volunteers, about 6 or 7 people, there's a variety, a great broad breadth of talent on there. There are people who have had experience of being an architect, being in senior management in the NHS, housing and planning. And, they've been struggling with this for a number of years now, but we're finally at the stage where we're about to get something done. And, Ian, I would say as well, if you're interested in the Land Trust, which you clearly are, they would welcome volunteers. And if your experience as broad experience as a county councillor, they'd welcome your experience and your input with open arms. So I think, it's been unfortunate what's happened, but we must persevere and we must get this over the line. And I'm quite sure that will happen within the next year. So thank you for your question, Ian.
Thank you, Mr. Hollidge, for submitting that question, and you may remain for the rest of the meeting, should you wish to. Otherwise, you're free to leave. Agenda item 6, members' question time. So I've got a question from Councillor Drayson. Councillor Drayson, would you like to read out your question in full?
Yes, thank you, Chair. How long had charging for Beeching Close car park been suspended, and what is the pressing need to reinstate charging at this time?
Thank you, Councillor Drayson. Councillor Timpey?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Drayson, for your question. Beeching Road car park has always been free at the point of use until the 1st of June this year. This does not mean, however, that the car park is free to operate. In the past, running costs, including business rates, maintenance and enforcement, have been met by all Rother taxpayers rather than those using the car park. As we are all aware, the council is under unprecedented financial strain and budgets are under huge pressure. We rely on income from fees and charges to support our revenue budget and help provide services to all of our residents. Furthermore, Beeching Road car park sits only a short distance from Wainwright Road car park, where charges have been in place for many years. Both car parks have similar demographics, being adjacent to industrial parks. The charges introduced at Beeching Road are the same as those at Wainwright Road, which is £2.85 per day, which if you go anywhere, I'm not sure you would find £2.85 a day, or £472 for an annual permit, which equates to just over £1.80 per day, based on a 5-day week.
Councillor Drayson, do you wish to put a supplementary question to Councillor
Yes,
Timpey?
please, Chair, and this is where my declaration as a member of Bexhill-on-Sea Town Council applies. My question specifically asked what the pressing need was to reintroduce charging on the 1st of June. As Councillor Timpey has said, the running costs have been previously met by all of Rother's taxpayers, but for some reason this suddenly became no longer acceptable. As a non-revenue generating car park, I suspect that as part of local government reorganisation, it could have been passed down to the town council. But now with charging reinstated, I suspect it can be passed up to whatever unitary authority we end up with. So my supplementary question is, should we expect all RDC car parks, which are currently free to use or have their charges suspended, to have them reintroduced or introduced in the near future, such as Sidley?
Councillor Timpey?
Thank you for your supplementary, Councillor Drayson. I need to get some more information for you because as far as I am aware at this juncture, no other car park that is currently free is in our budget to have increased charges. It goes back to the answer, we have to find money from somewhere. And I'm not sure why every single taxpayer should pay for other people to use a free car park. That's my personal opinion. As regards devolving to the town council, because it's now earning money, you're quite right, that now becomes out of scope. Oops. So I'll get you some more answers, because I do believe that the people are under the impression that because we've started charging in Beeching Road, that nobody's using it, which is absolute tosh. I don't have the actual up-to-date figure for you, but I do know people are using it, and quite frankly, I think it's really quite good value. But as far as devolvement, I can't give you an answer, but I shall certainly give you one later. Thank you.
Through you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Timpey.
Agenda item 7, which is to receive the report and recommendations from Cabinet. Councillor Oliver.
I was in conversation. Seven. Bear with me, please, Chair. Thank you. I'd like to move the report. The meeting held on the 15th of June be approved and adopted.
Second.
Project. I shall now call over the report. If the minute is not reserved for discussion, it will automatically be approved without debate. If members want to speak to and or amend any recommendations, they must reserve the minute when I call out the minute number. If members wish to reserve the item for discussion, please indicate as I call over. So this is 15th of June 2026, CB 2604, budget outturn. Okay. As the minute has not been reserved for discussion and it has been moved and seconded, I shall now put the motion to the vote. This means that this Cabinet recommendation has been approved without discussion. All those in favour? So that's agenda item 8, to receive the report and recommendations from the Licensing and General Purposes Committee. Councillor Stanger.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to thank Richard Parker Harding and all the officers and the team that put everything together. We just chair a committee, we don't do the hard work, so, but very much thank them first. I'm pleased to bring forward the new licensing policy for 2026, following consultation with our statutory partners and stakeholders. Firstly, I'd like to thank Sussex Police, East Sussex Fire and Rescue, Public Help and everyone else who contributed to the process. This isn't about creating extra burdens for responsible businesses. As someone that works closely with licensed premises and community venues across Rother, I understand how important these are to our local economy, employment and community life. The policy ensures we continue to promote the 4 licensing objectives while maintaining a fair, balanced and proportionate approach. It updates the existing policy to reflect current legislation, guidance and best practice, while recognising the important roles that pubs, clubs, restaurants and other venues play within our community. The Licensing and General Purposes Committee considered the responses received and unanimously supported the proposed policy. I am therefore pleased to move the recommendation before Council this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Stanger. Seconded? Thank you, Councillor Delaney. So I shall now call over that report. If the minute is not reserved for discussion, it will automatically be approved without debate. If members want to speak to and or amend any recommendation, you must reserve the minute when I call out the minute number. So 20th of May 2026, LG 26/10, Licensing Policy 2026. Councillor Creaser.
I just got a question, actually. I think I found a couple of what looked like typos, so I wonder if they would be changed before it's actually published.
I had found similar ones.
Okay,
I'm glad
I thought
you
someone might have done. All right, I'm fine. That's all I wanted.
Councillor.
Sorry, mine's a bit off piece, so no worries, we don't have the answer. But just wondering how many premises actually used the extension for the World Cup in the late hours, whether that was like a massive take-up or whether there was no interest at all. Does anyone know?
It's not really connected, as you announced. Perhaps you could just very quickly.
Yeah, just quickly, because my own observation, we were up against it when England won last Wednesday. Generally, my colleague will know that's in the Alliance that I contacted different colleagues that I think we're about 90% of venues didn't have a cover for the licence until the government changed their mind. So obviously, with my colleague Catherine and others, we did email the Home Secretary and the Home Office to see if there was going to be a move. The MPs, Kieran Mullen and Helena Daldemore, also helped out. So obviously, I'm not saying it changed the government's mind, but it was definitely fed into the system. So.
So, Councillor Drayson.
Just checking if it's been called over, I'll make a couple of comments on it when it's open for debate.
I didn't hear you, I'm afraid.
No, Councillor Creasy was calling it over, a couple of typos. So I thought it was being called over. Otherwise, I would have put my hand up even more for calling it over. And I thought Councillor Hacking was also calling it over.
Thank you, Councillor. Right, I think we're probably not calling that over, Councillor Creasy, is that right, because of the typos?
I just wanted to draw your attention, make sure that I wasn't the only one, but clearly I wasn't, which doesn't surprise me.
Thank you, Councillor Creasy. It may be appropriate now to actually, and I don't know whether we have to redo the whole thing, but it's actually not 26/10, it's 2609. Councillor Drayson, for the amended number.
I'm reserving it to call it over. I want to make a couple of comments on it.
Thank you. So, as the minute has been reserved, I will now proceed to deal with that reserved minute. Councillor Drayson.
Thank you, Chair. I've just got a couple of problems with in the policy itself, and I doubt if there's anything we can do with it because it's been topped and tailed. But paragraph 26, which is the cumulative effect of a number of licensed premises, it says the council will not take need into account when considering an application. Need concerns the commercial demand. However, it recognises that cumulative impact of the number, type and density of licensed premises in a given area may lead to serious problems of nuisance disorder outside some premises. It recognises it. What can it do about it? It seems to be not to be able to do anything about it. And then in 45, it talks about the crossover between planning and licensing. And again, it says the two will never shall meet, but the licensing committee can, if appropriate, provide reports to the planning committee on the situation regarding licensed premises in the area, including the general impact of alcohol-related crime and disorder. I'm not convinced in my position on planning that that is a thing that we would ever consider, because we are told that planning and licensing are separate and never the twain shall meet. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Stanger.
So I haven't got the answer to the question, Councillor Drayson. I think we'll need Richard Parker Harding for a definite. But sorry, I've stand up. But I know that obviously the government recently updated, the new government updated licensing to do with commercial premises and not judging them too harshly and taking in commercial kind of ideas into the whole situation when judging the licensed premises. And I think this feeds into, I'm not being 100% definite, but I remember speaking to Richard Parker Harding, something along them lines, but I'm sure he'll find a more detailed answer. But yeah, I think that's as far as I can go really. But I remember Richard Parker Harding saying something along the lines that when you're judging now a licensing application or a licensing rebuke or such, you mustn't take in the commercial, because they're already struggling almost. The government's changed the guidance of the licensing policy. But that doesn't mean that answers your question. I'm just giving you some background.
Can I just come back on that, Chair, and say that was my understanding that need was a commercial and not a planning or licensing decision. But I'm not sure how licensing can, having taken that into consideration, can do anything with it. They're still going to have to say yes.
Thank you, Councillor Drayson. Does anybody else want to make any further contribution and to make a debate? Councillor Field.
Thank you. Just briefly, because it is in my portfolio, I have absolutely got full confidence that Mr Parker Harding will have got this right when he was translating government guidance stroke policy into our policy. And I would just note that it says the licensing committee can, not it will or it should, but it can. And I, like you, have always believed that licensing and planning can't consort each other. Sometimes it's a good thing and sometimes I think it's a bit of a shame. But the opportunity is there if it's thought to be necessary.
Councillor Drayson.
Having raised the issue I wanted to issue, Chair, I don't think it would be prudent to hold this up because of the whole policy. So I wouldn't want to stand in the way, but I needed to make those 2 points because of the clarity. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Drayson. So, all those in favour? So that's unanimous. Thank you very much. There was one hand that I couldn't see. So agenda item 9, to receive the report and recommendation from the Standards Committee. Councillor Byrne.
Thank you, Chair. As those of you who've read the report will notice, the main topic was not the way in which the standards complaints are being handled, but the sheer volume. And it did raise a couple of operational matters. It was a shame, I think myself and the Vice Chair both felt it was a shame. We understood the operational reasons, but it was a shame that neither our Standards Officer nor our Deputy Standards Officer were available at that meeting. That having been said, we got some very positive notes on what was being done to cure the backlog, created again by operational difficulties, and we got some very positive notes from the parish councils as to what, and from RALC, the Rother Association of Local Councils, as what they were going to do by the way of training for parish councils to try and minimise, not in any way silence, but minimise the number of complaints by, first of all, trying to give people a bit more training about how to treat each other, but equally giving them an update on the standards of what was and what was not acceptable. So the meeting was very useful. We were aware of a large backlog, and as I say, that was explained, but I still think it was a shame that that meeting carried on without either the monitoring officer or the standards officer or the deputy standards officer. Thank you.
Seconded. Councillor Projak, thank you.
Thank you very much. What I'm standing for is that RALC, Rother Association of Local Councils, are looking now at what they, as parish and town councils, can do themselves. Maybe triage, maybe have somebody external reduce the number of parish and town council complaints, because those are the difficult ones in the sense that often they can be resolved by a conversation and do not have to go to the more serious level. The thing that actually impressed me was when we had a presentation from the then monitoring officer who had experience of a unitary. And when we get to unitary, I don't know how many monitoring officers there will be in unitary, but I got the impression there might be one, and maybe two, I don't know, but they wouldn't be able to cope with the amount of work that would come their way through the complaints from parish and town councils. So I think we must plan ahead for that.
Thank you. So I'll now call over the report if the minute is not reserved for discussion. Councillor Barnes, I've just spotted you.
I'm not sure I have any right to call it over, Chairman, but I had really the same concern that Councillor Projak has expressed. As a former chairman of a parish council, I'm still a member of that parish council and declared it. I was asked by the monitoring officer to actually undertake some mediation when we had a minor tiff on the parish council. So I think clearly RALC or whatever body succeeds it may be able to do a little to alleviate your problem. But it does seem to me this is one of the side issues, really, of the unitary, which the LGA or the National Association of Local Councils need to put in the government's mind, because, quite frankly, unitary is simply going to be overwhelmed if we have the same number of parish council disputes across the county as we have in Rother. And there are no sanctions. All it does is take time, and you can't really resolve them. And so this is one of those unexplored areas of reorganisation which really needs to be highlighted to a government which seems to be rather ignorant of the way local government works. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Just for clarification, I was expecting Councillor Protak to be seconding that. But
Apologies.
would somebody like to second? Councillor Biggs. So we've had a couple of comments from councillors. I'll now call over that report. If the minute is not reserved for discussion, it will automatically be approved without debate. If members want to speak further or amend any recommendation, you must reserve that minute when I call out that minute number. This is the right number. Having checked the number on the 30th of June 2026, we've got SC 26/08, which is the annual report to Council, ethical standard matters. Councillor Timpey?
Am I calling it over?
Are you, Councillor?
I want to ask a question, please.
Okay. Anybody else? So, as that minute has been reserved, I'll now proceed to deal with the reserved minute. Councillor Timpey.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to know how long it's actually going to take to resolve some of the really, really outrageous complaints that are currently on the books. Do we have any idea? Anybody? Because there's been certain behaviour, especially in this chamber, that should be called to account, and it hasn't been, and it's a couple of years. So I just think that we really ought to get to grips with this, and as the new monitoring officer sitting there, I would certainly hope there's some sort of timeline to get some of these really outrageous ones come to the top and get them sorted. Because it's not all just towns and parishes. There has been some really obnoxious behaviour in this chamber that needs to be dealt with.
Thank you. Councillor Byrne.
Thank you, Chair. What I rather omitted in my remarks was the fact that we had also looked at the length of time that these various issues were taking to be resolved. And as I said initially, the backlog, and we understood what was being done. I also made the point that, and this is particularly apposite for behaviour in the chamber, that nowadays behaviour is often a matter of record. It's recorded either by the people or in this case on our meeting recording. So I didn't quite understand why evidence gathering was taking so long. I can understand why maybe 8 or 9 years ago it was taking a long while, but it seems that there's kind of each complaint, those normally take this long and those normally take that long, and I really felt that needs looking at again. I'm sure it is being looked at again, but now we live in this time where things are on the record. The he said, she said shouldn't take that long to run down to what was actually said, who said it, and therefore come to a decision. So I just hope that that's the way forward. I'm fairly confident from what we've seen on one of the papers, in fact on both of the papers, that will be so, but the Standards Committee will certainly be watching the skies for that sort of progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Councillor Biggs.
Thank you, Chair. Ralph met last Wednesday, if I was correct, and I was going to discuss various things. Like Councillor Prosek said, is parish councils trying to sort themselves out. It was suggested that instead of the individual councils sorting themselves out, chairs from other councils would act as a mediator. 3 chairs would look at the person on, say, Robertsbridge Council or Parish Council that was issued. Was that discussed at the meeting, do we know, regarding that, or will that come out in their final synopsis when they give it to us all? Does anybody know?
Councillor Project?
Done twice.
In this instance.
Sorry, did you mean at the RALC meeting? Yes. It was discussed somewhat at the RALC meeting. There were reservations about how it would work. And so the discussion resulted in the fact that they would go away, they being the chair and vice chair, would go away, look at what options there could be for triaging. They did make it clear that they wouldn't be dealing with the most serious allegations, that it would be the, I don't know how to describe them actually, there's probably a word in misdemeanor. Is it misdemeanors? So they weren't going to look at the serious ones, but so they're coming back with a paper, which obviously all parish and town councils will discuss, and then come to some agreement of whether to go forward or not go forward with the idea.
Thank you for the explanation.
Okay. With no further debate, I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous again. I'm sorry that Councillor Maynard missed that vote. Okay, so that's carried. So, as that concludes the business for this meeting, and as I am roasting in this jacket, I now declare this meeting closed at 7:16.